In this video we're going to talk more about server control properties, and there's basically three different types. Up to now we've only used primitive properties like strings, integers, and so on. But now we're going to add to our repertoire enumeration properties and also class properties and see the benefits there. Okay, let's start out by creating a new project and its accompanying solution. We'll call it custom control properties. Make sure it's an ASP.NET web application. Custom control properties. And once we've done that, then we'll want to add another project to our solution, a web control project. So I'm going to select the solution, then select new project. Make sure to click add to solution so you don't get a whole other solution or project. This time in the templates we're going to select web control library, and we're going to name this CC properties. Click OK. And this might be a little superstitious of me, but I'm going to go ahead and delete this file and then add a new one. A new web custom control, and I'm going to call this products, and click open. And so now that we have this, let's go ahead and build our control, and let's go ahead and add it to our web form so we know that at least that works. So to do this, I'm going to go to the web form, open up the toolbox, go to a tab that I created called Bob's Custom Controls, right click, select Customize Toolbox, and the Customize Toolbox dialog appears. I'm going to click on .NET Framework Components, and then I'm going to click Browse, and I think it should be in my projects under Custom Control Properties, CC Properties. There it is. Let's go in the bin directory and select the assembly ccproperties.dll and click open. And then select OK. And now it appears on our toolbox. I'm going to drag and drop it onto the design surface. And then, just to be sure, I'm going to go up to the one property that's in it, the text property, and type in hello world just to make sure that it works, and it seems to work just fine. So now that we've got it established on our web form here, I'm going to pull this and put it up here. Let's go ahead and start talking about properties now. The first type of property is a primitive property. We've already seen that in the template that's created for us. The text property is primitive because it is a string value. Let's create one additional primitive property, and let's call it quantity. The first thing I'll do is put a private field, and we'll even just do it this way, quantity as integer. There we go. And then we'll do a public getter and setter. So public property quantity as integer creates the get and set for us. Here we'll return m quantity, and here we'll set m quantity equal to value. And let's go ahead and add some of the adornments, the attributes on top of our property. So we'll do like bindable, we'll set that to true. Category, we'll set that to a new category called miscellaneous, MISC, that you'll see on some controls. Default value, we'll set this to 0, and then we'll add the underscore so we don't have to change it. So now ideally what we should be able to do is just rebuild our control, and hopefully once we select this, it should now have a quantity that defaults to 0, and we can change that to 4, and we could have even changed the rendering to reflect a new quantity if we wanted to, but we're not going to do it for this time. Okay, so that's a primitive property. Both the text and the quantity represent primitive properties. Let's move on to enumerable or enumeration properties. And this enumeration is going to that we're going to create will tell how much information about the product should be displayed when rendering it on the web form. So to do this, we're going to get outside of our class. Now you can't see because it pops off to the side here, but public class product. We're going to actually create this above that area and do public enum display details enum. And so we'll have full details, some details, and no details. Okay? Then going back into our product class, we'll want to create a private property to hold the selection that the user makes, or the default selection if they don't make any selection. So I'm going to create a new private field called product. Oops, I'm sorry. We're going to call this display details as display details enum, and then we're going to initialize it by setting it to no details. Okay. The next thing we're going to do is create public getters and setters, a public property. So to do this, let's start with public property display details as display details enum, and it creates the get set. So let's do return display details, which will return one of those enumerated values, and then we'll set display details equal to value. Okay, and we'll want to add some attributes on top of this as well. The bindable is true. We'll add this to the miscellaneous category as well. Category miscellaneous default value, we'll just keep it empty for now. And then in the render, let's go ahead and change this around to reflect our new enumerable property. And what we'll do is display different information based on the value of m_display details. So if m_ display details equals display details enum full details, then, and let's just keep it simple for this first time through since we don't have a whole lot of information to display just yet. So whoops, output.write, and we'll just put in full details, and we'll do else if display details equals some details, then output.write some details, and then finally output.write no details. Okay, and let's just go ahead and get rid of this line here, and we'll recompile or rebuild it and go back over here, and notice that it changed. I don't know if you saw it flip, but it changed from hello world to no details. Let's go over here to our properties window, and notice that our display details appears, and in our drop down list box each of our enumerated values show up just by virtue of the fact that we created an enumerable property and then created these values in the enumeration. So I could pick some details, and when I do, it's going to re-render to some details, and when I pick the full details, it will re-render it to full details. Very cool. So now we've looked at primitive properties, enumeration properties, and finally let's take a look at class properties. So let's go back to our product control, and we're going to do something similar to how we created the public enumeration display details enum. We're going to add a new class, and that class is going to encapsulate information about a given product. And for the sake of brevity, I'm not going to type in everything, because it would be quite a lot of typing, and I'm sure you get bored when I do that. So I'm going to paste in the class, but I'll explain every part of it. So what I've done is added a public class product properties. I've created 3 private fields: m underscore product name, m underscore product description, and m underscore product price. And then I've created 3 public properties for each of the private fields: product name with the get in the set, product description with the get in the set, and finally the product price with the get in the set. Nothing fancy here. As you saw, I initialized each of the values to nothing. So the next thing we're going to do is work within our web control, and I want to have a private field for the instance of the product properties class. So I've created private m underscore product properties as a new instance of the product properties class that we just created. Now, do you think we'll have to do anything special because we used a class instead of a primitive or an enumeration? The answer is no, you really don't. So let's go ahead to just below our display details, and I want to paste in a new property that I've created. And this is called public property product information as product properties, so the new custom class that I created. And it just returns or gets and sets an instance of the product properties class by accessing its private field. Now you might be wondering to yourself, how exactly is this going to work? Because will the properties window be able to allow me to set these items? And the answer is no. There will be no design time support for this type of property, for the class property. And the reason is the class can be so complex that the properties window needs a little bit more information. So what we'll do is, in a different video, is show how to create design time support for complex properties. If that's the case, then you might be wondering, how exactly does the property get set? And I'll show you. We'll have to go into the actual HTML for the web form to set those properties, and there's a specific way you got to do it. So without further ado, let's go ahead and just change also our render to reflect the new values that we've added to our custom control. And I'm just going to copy this, or just rather highlight it and then paste in some new code. So if our display details is full details, then I want to show our class.productName, product description, and the product price. If it's some details, maybe we only display the product name. And then finally, if there's no details, we could either just write out the text, or just in this case, we're going to write out no details. So it shows that the enumeration and the class will work together. So let's go ahead and build this again, and then go over to our web form and see it updated. Notice that we get kind of a weird message here. And notice over here in the properties window, there is a product information property. However, it's grayed out, and we'll notice that it's of type ccproperties.product properties. If we want to populate the information here, we're going to have to go into the HTML itself, find our cc1 product, and what we'll do is go to the end of this line and start typing in the following. We'll do product information, which is the name of the field, dash, and then the name of the property, equals, and then the value. We'll make this called the widget. So let's go ahead and save this and look back into our design, and notice now that the property took, that the render method was able to grab. Let's take a look at our render method again. It was able to, since we're in full details mode, grab the product name and at least place it as it rendered our product object, our product control. So let's use the same technique to populate the other properties. Again, product information, which is the name of our property, which represents our product details class. And then we want to use the name of the property within that class that we want to set. In this case, we'll set product description equal to this is the product description, and we'll do it again, product information dash product price equals $4.95. Make a few corrections there, and hopefully I typed everything correctly. If not, we can come back and fix it. Let's look back in our designer. This will tell us a lot. Hey, it worked. So we have, just like we noted in our render method, it's going to write out the product name, description, and the price. And here we have the product name, description, and the price. And so what happens if I select my control and change the display details? So let's go ahead and change it to some details, and notice that it renders it and only shows us the name, and then no details, it just simply puts the text no details. So now we've created more complex properties for our server controls, not only the ones that we're familiar with, the primitive properties that we started out with in the first couple of videos, but also now enumeration properties that allow the user to select from a drop-down list, and then class properties which allow us to use the benefits of encapsulation within a class in order to set